when I'm with you. There's no one else around. Yeah, I'm so high, gravity can't hold me down. Imagine faith and hope so alive. You got me feeling so good, 'cause baby, you're like the sun flying high on a blue sky, shining bright into the night. The stars sparkling down, yeah, diamonds and gold can't compare to your world. It's somewhere far beyond heaven and earth. When I hold you, I'm high above the clouds. Yeah, I'm so free that I don't think I'm ever coming down. Imagine faith and hope so alive. You got me feeling so good, 'cause baby, you're like the sun flying high on a blue sky, shining bright into the night. The stars sparkling down, yeah, diamonds and gold can't compare to your world. It's somewhere far beyond heaven and earth.
Me, Myself, and Liberty. I'm Leslie Nesmith here with Tyler Miller, General Manager of Wilshire Gun. Obviously, we are live. This is exciting stuff. We've got a lot to talk about today, things going on in the world of guns and the Second Amendment. So join us, tag your friends, and have them join this podcast. There's going to be a lot of information. We will be right back. Did we get it?
And you know what?
What's up?
When we did all those 365s, that was the time. That was a good time.
Oh, I know. We had a ton of them.
Yeah.
They were literally everywhere. You couldn't go through here without stepping on one.
Yeah, it would be nice if we had some more.
I know, right? If only we had some way to get some.
What? P365. Huh. P365. That's weird. P365. Man, these things are everywhere.
It's Lord Tyler!
I've come to bring you good fortune! 365 for you!
Oh!
And a 365 for you! And a 365 for you!
Thank you, Lord Tyler.
Thanks, Lord Tyler of Wilshire.
And we're back with Tyler Miller here at Wilshire Gun. Exciting day here. We are going to be talking about the permitless carry bill that passed. And so I'm curious, have you had a lot of people express concerns? Are people coming in and talking about that now?
It's just as fast as it fell off of all the news reports, it fell off of people's minds, I think. It really haven't had a whole lot of people concerned or, interested in it one way or the other. We've had people, obviously, that have come in and asked about, still getting their permit, trying to ask the implications of it and the ramifications of the law in regards to them making a decision about carrying, whether to get their SDA or stick it out, and figure out what was the best option for them. So we've helped them along those lines. But really, no one with concerns. We don't really see that side of it, but I know that side of the argument still obviously persists. So.
Yeah, I know that some of the guys with the Second Amendment Association, they've been doing the Second Amendment audits at different places, carrying their various weapons to see what kind of response the public is going to have. So that's been interesting. Have you had more people coming in for training? Maybe in preparation for it? I know that was one of the big concerns, and the pushback that we got was, there's not going to be any training. No one's going to get trained, and it's going to be like the Old West. And
we still consistently have people come in for SDAs. We still have people come in for our normal training. Obviously, participants in the actual SDA classes to be certified in the state in order to get their permit have fallen. By a certain amount, but we still have training and still have classes. We, initiated, on our own accord. We do twice a month. We give a free seminar. We actually have one tonight here at Wilshire Gun. You can go on our website and see those dates on our training calendar. They're completely free. You can come in and listen where we go through the legality of the law. It would be roughly equivalent to the same exact legal portion that you'd receive in the SDA class. There's just no shooting or anything else involved in it. So you're not actually going to go out and shoot or anything else in it. But you just sit and you listen, and you'll understand, the ramifications of the law and entitled under the SDA statutes within the state of Oklahoma. And you kind of go and get some scenario, and then we actually walk you through the law as now been amended that will go into effect on 1 November. So you kind of understand a little bit more. And then we talk about, the ramifications if you want to carry out of state and some options. So we just explain all that out in a nice, easy format. You can sit up here in our Caliber Club where we're at right now and have dinner and listen to Will Andrews or myself go and talk about the law. So it's a really nice setting and easy to do.
It really is. Okay, so if you missed that, I know some people join us a little bit later. So I didn't realize that you guys were doing it twice a month. So that's really awesome. They are doing a class twice a month. And it's basically the same type of information you would get in the SDA class about the legal aspects of the Second Amendment and defending yourself and that kind of thing, which is what I know a lot of people out there were really concerned about. So please make sure if you have, friends or family members out there who are interested in carrying under the new permitless carry that's going into effect in November, let them know Wilshire Gun has this great service that they're offering at no charge. That is awesome.
I mean, we're not lawyers. I mean, we always will stipulate that with anything else. The thing with SDA and SDA instruction, right? You're certified by the state. The state goes and takes and gives you the class. As an SDA instructor, you're certified by it. So this is kind of outside that realm. All we're doing is simply informing you within, the best intents and purposes that we can. It's up to you to go out and get that legal understanding. And that's going to be for everybody when this law goes into effect. If you choose not to go and take and get any training, if you choose not to go, you still incur all of the legal responsibilities to go and take and follow and abide by all the laws of the state of Oklahoma. You carry all the responsibilities that right entails. So that's up to you, and like everything else, every right comes with responsibility. Use yours responsibly, and that's all that's what anybody else would expect. So
yeah. Which you mentioned getting the SDA license. That's a question that I get a lot from my audience and friends and family is, do I still need to get the license? Well, personally, I'm going to, at least for now, because for reciprocity purposes, to be able to carry in other states, I don't want to go anywhere I can't carry. So I think that's very important. So personally, now I know some people are anti having any kind of, license or whatever, but since the law, in other states is, restrictive, I do highly encourage you to go ahead and get the SDA license so that you can carry in other states. So
it's a completely personal decision. I believe it's up to the individual, my single, I was on your podcast back when this first kind of came down, and everybody was all up in arms, several months ago, and we were talking about it. I still believe that I'm completely on board with it from the aspect of there's a lot of people that simply can't incur the cost of the process.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely immoral to go and take and charge somebody for being able to fundamental aspect to protect themselves. And
that's an infringement.
Absolutely. And so when I go and look at that, there's a lot of people that just simply can't afford it.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have to. And obviously their choice, their die is cast simply because of that. And that is what it is. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then I want to get into some of the stuff that you and I were talking about what's going on in the gun industry and some of the stuff that the audience probably isn't aware of. So we'll be right back.
Another one drives a truck.
Visit cdluniversity.org.
At CDL University, and another success, and another success. Another one drives a truck. Hey, gonna help you too. Another one drives a truck.
Hey everybody, Todd Tucker here, and everyone who knows me knows I love to read a great book, and right now I'm reading this incredible novel by local author Richard Engel. All you have to do is go to LastAmericanPresident.com and say big right now on this book. The Last American President is a story about political intrigue, romance, betrayal set against the backdrop of the dissolution of the United States of America. It's great reading, and when you go to LastAmericanPresident.com, use the promo code OTU, you're going to save money. And not only that, but half the price comes back to OTU. So half the proceeds from this book come back so you can watch great programming like you see on the OTUmedia network every day. LastAmericanPresident.com. I highly recommend this book. Read it today.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. I'm here with Tyler Miller, and we are talking about, obviously, guns, because we're at Wilshire Gun. Right now, if you haven't, please tag and share this podcast. We want as many people on as we can get. We are in the process of growing our audience and getting the conservative word out there. All right, so you and I were talking earlier about what's going on in the gun industry, and a major gun distributor recently filed bankruptcy. So let's talk about that, because you have some information that I don't have, and I'm ready to be educated on this.
So yeah, actually, there's a lot of disruption in the industry right now. There's a lot of folks out there, most people watching this, that love guns, and a lot of people in the industry absolutely love guns. We all do, but like anything else, there's an underside to everything. There's a business structure to everything, right? We all love our chicken, but we don't really think about how does that chicken end up on our plate. You know what
I
I'm
don't
saying?
think about that.
We don't want to think about that, but hey, somebody's got to make something here. Somebody's got to pull something out of the ground to end up here, and we go to it. So I mean, for years and years, obviously been manufacturers. Manufacturers, of course, make guns. They sell them. They end up magically inside my store, and off they go, and I buy them or I pick them up somewhere. But there's obviously, like any other business, there's a distribution network. So manufacturers have to sell them. Most of the time, it's inefficient for them to sell them directly to dealers, unless the dealers are like very high volume dealers, large sellers, big volume, where they have direct relationships. So they sell through distribution networks, wholesalers, distributors, and that entire ecosystem has to kind of work in a balance in everything in order to go and take and make sure it works. Naturally, like any other business, somebody's got more power than the others. Most of the time in the gun industry, obviously the manufacturers have most of the power. Distributors sometimes will have more depending upon which manufacturer it is. But really, that's most the case. The big dogs, in the industry, the Smith and Wessons, they really kind of dominate things. But we're at a precipice within the gun industry that there's going to be some major disruptions in the next few years, particularly if there is another 4 years, which is more than likely of a Donald Trump presidency. We can talk about what those indicators kind of look like. I'm taking out the politics of it and just looking at the realities of it that we know from years and years of data analysis when it comes to our political elections. But when you do that, there's going to be a lot of stuff, mostly just because there's been such a dislocation between supply and demand for so long.
Yeah.
And Adam Smith, one of my holy heroes out there, and doesn't lie, right? Supply and demand and the free market's still going to have a lot to say about who's going to win and lose in the grand game of capitalism. So, I mean, I kind of took some notes and we talked about it to kind of describe it out and make it kind of flow for people.
Yeah.
And maybe if we just want to go through that, it'll
Yeah,
make a little
that'd
bit
be
more
great.
sense. So to kind of describe this for people and make it make more sense. But so we have to hop in our magic time machine, and we're going to actually go back outside of guns and go back to 2002, 2000s. Obviously the dot-com bubble burst. Private equity was funding a lot of that. So there was a lot, obviously Wall Street was funding a lot of those, a lot of IPOs, a lot of startups, but a lot of private equity too. The richest of the rich in this country, a lot of big private investors have money in the Wall Street banks, but most of the Wall Street banks, a lot of that money was you and me with our mutual funds and our investment funds, pensions. Private equity was the big driver of a lot of that. Big, rich, uber billionaires who were going and investing in these startups. They had a lot of money. It burst. They took a lot of that out. They needed to put somewhere else. They put it into housing. Housing bubble inflated very quickly. No one thought it would rupture. 2006, 2008, started to do it. Private equity jumped and pulled a lot of that money out of there. Housing market started to crumble. Okay. At the same time, that disruption then started translating into the stock market. We remember the declines in the market in 08, 10. Everybody was trying to retire at that time. They couldn't. The market was tanking. Their funds were tanking. There was nowhere really safe to start looking and putting their money. At the same time, we have to look at fiscal policy. The Federal Reserve was loaning out money dirt cheap. The discount rate was at nothing. They were basically dumping out cash, devaluing the currency to try to prop up as much of the market as they could. So you have cheap money, and you had a lot of excess money that was out there that was trying to find a home that could return an investment. In 2008, you also had somebody get elected. Okay, that makes sense for everybody. That election brought somebody in who also we knew had a very differing opinion on the Second Amendment than a lot of people out there.
I'll say it, anti-gun.
Yeah, that was absolutely.
it was anti-gun.
So I mean, it was.
So we
there.
bought lots of guns.
Well, not
Right?
initially.
No, okay.
Not initially. I mean, when you actually look at the numbers, it wasn't completely disconnected until almost the end of 2009, when there were several different policies, the Department of Justice, the ATF, and several others that began to enact, where it began a daily kind of talking point that kind of looked like some of the rhetoric that we heard on the campaign trail. There's two major indicators that we have, what we call trailing indicators in the industry, because they occur after the fact, but it's ways that we explain things. One is what we call adjusted NICS checks. NICS checks are the background check. When you come to a gun dealer like us and you fill out your background check, we keep a record not of you and who you were, but rather the numbers that the FBI did. And the other is what we call federal excise tax stars. Every gun that you buy has a 11% tax rolled up into it under federal law called an excise tax. The gun manufacturers register those taxes with the federal government, and those are kept track of. So when we see those two, we have a general idea of the guns that are selling and the guns that are being made. Those numbers were largely started being kept in the last years of the Clinton administration in the late 1990s. And they were relatively stable, growing at a few percentage points above inflation, accounting for population growth. And they were relatively stable until 2008. And then they began to become completely disconnected from the traditional safe growth. They began to bubble. Now, no one was really complaining because an industry that had been largely stagnant for growth for a lot of years was now getting a lot of revenue in it.
Yeah.
New ranges were going up to a degree, new manufacturers were entering it, and existing manufacturers were expanding their line and capacities. Okay. Demand is always going to go and be sought by a need to fill supply. Banks, traditional investment banks, Wall Street, they're kind of hesitant to loan into risky businesses, which they've always viewed the gun industry as. So that void was filled by who? Well, people who couldn't put it into housing anymore. .com wasn't around. A lot of things weren't doing well. Oil was depressed. Private equity filled the gap. A lot of private equity poured into the gun industry, and not in just the manufacturers. Private equity was building big ranges. They were buying out distributors, were expanding their capacity, and they were going and adding on capacity for manufacturers. They were allowing them to get bigger. They were coming on as like secondary and tertiary investors for these things. And a lot of money flooded in. Capacity expanded very quickly to fill that demand bubble. And next you know, supply was starting to catch up. Demand was growing, supply is growing, prices are growing, profits are growing. Everybody was really, really happy. And then 2012. 2012, December, Sandy Hook Elementary. Sandy Hook occurred right after an election. There was no further election pressure on Obama. Democrats had gained seats in the House. Democrats had held the election in the Senate. There was a grave risk out there in people. NRA was stumping. Everybody was out trying to raise money. The panic was at a frenzy. If anybody remembers it, there were people who had bought AR-15s for $800 a few months before that were selling them to everybody and their brother for $3,000 a few days later. It was ridiculous. But that demand increased even more amount of desire to enter that market. And we had a host of new entrants come in from 2013 until 2015. Just an absolute ton. And those that came in were doing it cheaply because private equity was there that didn't demand an immediate take on their return. But remember, interest rates remained incredibly low. We were still discounting rates out, so you could get a loan from a bank for next to nothing. These two culminates are kind of where we're at today.
Yeah.
This all kind of fast forwards around to 2016. The overall economy is not necessarily slowing down in 16. All right? The stock market remained relatively stable despite an election year where sometimes you see turmoil, but wages have remained relatively sticky. When we talk about sticky wages from an economic standpoint is where despite increases in stock prices and general available capital, business returns are increasing, but general overall wages as adjusted for inflation are not increasing. The average American worker out there hasn't got a true raise in over a decade. It just hasn't happened. So what does that mean for the average person who, when we're relying on retail, the bottom end to fuel an industry, they don't have an extra amount of money to pay. They have to use credit to make up the gap, or they have to shortchange something else in their household to make that call. A lot of them overspent in those years, 2013 to 2015. So the industry prepared for an election that looked like a slam dunk for Hillary Clinton. Again, upped capacity, took and converted a lot of their capital, money, profits, and turned it into product to sell off the shelves.
And I'm gonna say that's a good place for a break because this is like a cliffhanger because the 2016 election. Okay, so we'll be right back with what happened.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Imagine faith and hope so alive. You got me feeling so good. 'Cause baby, you're like the sun flying high on a blue sky, shining bright into the night. The stars sparkling down, yeah, diamonds and gold can't compare to your world. It's somewhere far beyond.
And we are back again with Tyler Miller. We are live here from Wilshire Gun in the Caliber Club, which I want to give a plug for this, okay? So I hadn't been up here in a while. I hosted a couple events here a while back. So I came up here to meet with him to set up for the podcast. This is incredible, guys. If you have not come to Wilshire Gun and come to the Caliber Club, it is awesome. It is very cool. And if I could, I would just pick up the camera and just show you around, and maybe we can post a video later of it, but it's
Sounds
awesome.
good.
So just a plug for Caliber Club.
Very cool.
All right, now we are in the middle of an economics lesson. So if you're joining us late, you're going to have to go back to the beginning of the podcast.
At least a 5 cent,
Yeah.
version that you can get, whatever, the dime store or whatever.
Yes.
So.
It's very important information. So please share this podcast and tag people. So now we are to the 2016 election and from there.
So we've seen in the past couple election cycles before that, in 2008, there had been the industry had seen an uptick in pre-election sales. It hadn't been noticeable before, even when it looked in the early stages like Kerry had a real competitive chance against Bush, and didn't look like it when it looked like Gore had a really competitive advantage against Bush in 2000. It didn't come close. But in 2008 it was there, and in 12 it was there as well. So there was an uptick both times. But in 16 it just wasn't the kind of push, despite a lot of the rhetoric that was involved on the backside of it. And there was some questions that kind of lingered from some of the industry insiders that was some deep thinking was, why was that there? And so there was a couple folks with some real brains of this that really had more of a back into the economic side of the house and some other industries that had seen bubbles before, recoveries from bubbles, and just the effects of lingering ones that just don't pop for a long time. And they find that two things is when you add too much supply too fast to meet bubbles, you actually aggregate demand downward. You actually kind of soften it.
Yeah.
And so you can't feel the effects of what's real demand and what's not. And the other is that when you consume too much too fast, but you don't expand new markets, obviously you're going to deflate your own bubble, but you don't realize it because you haven't felt the transitory effects of it deflating yet. It takes a while to deflate, and you don't realize it yet on the back end. And so what ended up happening was, everybody and their brother ran out and bought 6 ARs they didn't need.
Yeah.
They were racking them up on credit cards, and they were making those credit card payments so they couldn't afford it anymore. And then they went and finally they couldn't do it anymore, and then they start dumping those used guns. And then that supply then goes back in, and you're not seeing, because they're used, you're not seeing that supply back on the market again.
Yeah.
And so you're not realizing the supply is bigger than it is, and that's why you're seeing these shortfalls disconnect again.
Yeah.
And it's blunting everything. And again, sticky wages, just wage increases. There was no new revenues for family to buy more. There was just not a lot, particularly in the state of Oklahoma. We were having oil downturn at the same time. And then, of course, Trump's election finally just put the nail in the coffin on a lot of that, is it blunted a lot of the impetus for it. So that leads us to what's gone on really the last 2 years. It's got us to the point where we had just this week one of the largest distributors in the industry declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. United Sporting Companies, which owns Ellett and Jerry's and bought the remnants of AccuSport, who declared bankruptcy last year. Frankly, in a lot of ways, there's too many manufacturers, and it's not just manufacturers here, it's the too many manufacturers of parts, because most of the manufacturers don't make all of their parts. If I were to pick up any one of these guns, whether it's Glock or Smith & Wesson or SIG, they make some of the components, right? They're making some of their slides or frames, but a lot of their little parts they're sourcing from several different suppliers that they're making, and there's a lot of those out there. And you'd say, well, that would be great because it brings the cost on the guns down and makes it more competitive and everything else out there. But all of those different manufacturers are all competing for the same thing. It should technically go and bring prices down, but it actually goes and takes and creates a lot of disruptions for supplies, parts, and aggregation out there. The supplies are actually somewhat, it's disrupted. And there's methodology in both ways to it. It seems counterintuitive, but there's a way to it.
And something else I want to say is this applies to other industries as well at different times in our economic cycle and in our political cycle. So that's something, this information can be applied to other industries. So just kind of keep that in mind, you know, as you go forward. So it is important information.
And when we say too many manufacturers, there's too many undifferentiated, redundant products. So while you can have a bunch of different pistols, a bunch of different guns, they look aesthetically slightly different. There's something changed, but ultimately they're really doing the same function. You can have a certain level of brand loyalty, and brand loyalty sells to a certain amount. But when you're not really doing a good job of bringing in new people into the market, brand loyalty will suffice to your existing market to a degree, but you can't really bring or take and win over new people. Let's say you've got a pie and you own a certain section of that pie. Your brand really is going to own a certain part of it. It's very hard with brand alone to take somebody else's pie. If you want to go and take and get more, you have to go and bake a bigger pie.
Yeah.
We're not doing a very good job in the industry right now of baking a bigger pie. We've seen downtrends in the number of new women entering the market, number of new minorities entering the market. We've talked a good game for a long time, but we're not doing a good job of it. We go and take and we do a good job on, you know, conservative talk and a lot of this, talking about those dumb millennials and all these other things. But when we talk down to a lot of people, they tend to not engage your ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is now we've talked down and we're not engaging. They're not coming in and trying it. We're not growing a pie. And it speaks to a larger problem we have in the guns along with other things in our idea set. But then that's what kind of leads into that buying population is shrinking. Lingering private equity that was out there has pulled a lot of money. So there's not a lot of funds out there for companies that financed most of their expansions on debt. And again, why is debt important? When they took it out, when you took that interest rate, it was cheap. But unlike your home loan that you're lucky enough to get at like a fixed rate, home loans went bad when they were on variable reset arms, adjustable loans that reset upward. Almost all of these business loans, they're not set on fixed rates. They're set very cheap in the beginning with the idea that they're going to make enough money to pay them off before they get expensive. But the money never materialized, and now they're sitting on very expensive debt because the interest rates have risen. They don't have private equity funds to go and take and pay the debt down and convert the cost from debt to equity.
Yeah.
They're running out of money to pay their own debts. They can't move product. They've got too much on the shelves. They can't convert the product to capital to pay their bills. That's why bankruptcies.
Yeah.
So what does that really mean looking forward out there? 2017, you had AccuSport go and take and declare bankruptcy. Its remnants were bought by United Sporting Companies. They declared bankruptcy this week. You've got another, I don't want to go and take and say the name, but you've got another smaller regional distributor that's teetering, as they're probably going to declare here in the next month or so. You've got a couple more that are there. You've got some manufacturers that are teetering. H&K, one of the biggest names in the industry. H&K, famous for their defensive weapons, rifles. They're at risk of not winning the German Army's rifle contract because the German government put in a fail-safe line that the company must be financially solvent in order to win the contract, and HK can't meet that threshold right now. There's talk about other, former glorious gun manufacturers in the United States. There is going to be consolidation of manufacturers, distributors, and there's going to be a lot of gun ranges and gun sellers that are probably not going to be around in the next 2, 3, 4 years, simply because there's probably going to be at least another 4 years with Trump, and you're going to see a continued drop in demand for guns. Just a reality to it.
So what is the answer here? That everyone out here, we all need to go buy more guns?
I wouldn't necessarily go and take and say that at all. It's just, it's the power of economics, and it's the power of, things are going to happen. you've got to let them happen. Markets have to correct. And it's those things that, we as humans, we go and take and do this all the time. We kind of get overexcited. We create our own bubbles. It's the lessons that we've learned over and over again. We have to naturally let them fix themselves. I think it's just naturally going to happen. It's a good thing to talk about, and it's a good lesson to have.
To be aware of. I mean, it's so important. There's so many industries tied to the gun industry. I think about all of the, like we're talking about the accessories. Think about all of everything that's available out there, from the concealed carry gear to the slings and the holsters and just you name it. There's so much tied to this industry. So I think it's in the grand scheme of things, the gun industry is a smaller industry. I mean, it really is. I mean, you took at total revenues across the gun industry. If you looked at the National Shooting Sports Foundation, kind of like our big trade organization, our trade group, I mean, we're like a rounding error for a lot of other ones out there. But you look at an industry that touches so many Americans' lives, though, and one that is so interwoven into the fabric of how so many Americans define themselves, and visual and like emotionally and socially define and represent themselves, and what it means to be an American. That's where things kind of become a disruptor. And I guess we talked about this from an aspect of there's the potential of, if this industry is gravely impacted, there's not a lot of money for the industry to fix itself. There's no banks out there that want to step in and fix it. And the banks
the banks are adamantly anti-gun.
Yes.
Most of them are. If there's no one with money that'll step in and fix it, you're going to see there's no money for anybody to step in and fix it. There's no way for them to reorganize. There's a lot of companies that are going to go away. And if you wanted to talk about a way to attack gun rights, well, the easiest way to go and do it is just let the manufacturers and all these just die away.
Yeah.
And then there's no one to make them.
Which that's so scary.
There's no one to make them.
Yeah.
There's no way to get them. That's an easy way to do it. Maybe that's probably putting a little bit of a little tinfoil hat on, but it's an easy way to do it, right there. So there you go.
So what I'm hearing him say is we need to buy more guns. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll flush a little bit more of this out, and we'll buy some guns. Okay, we are back from buying lots of guns.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, that's all I'm hearing him say.
That's not what I was saying.
He's saying, go buy guns and ammo. So I'm going to have to do that, and I'm in a good place to do that today.
Go buy ammo, because ammo means you're shooting.
Yes.
Shooting means you're training. Training is a good thing. Everybody should be trained.
It's all connected.
There you go. I do agree.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about your favorite person in the world. All right, so we know that a Trump presidency is sadly only temporary, 8 years most likely. So eventually, somebody that's a communist, socialist could get in, and sadly, that's the way that everything is in cycles, and the pendulum swings back and forth. And we're not going to have this great opportunity to have this conservative president who is protecting our rights. We might end up, surely not AOC. Your
She's
meme,
my favorite.
the meme queen.
Oh, please let it be her. Please.
God. We will be selling lots of guns
No,
if
300,
AOC
365 days of AOC memes for 4 years. I'm in heaven. I am so in heaven. I can't get enough of her.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen the little girl that does the imitation? If you haven't seen, I'm going to send you the video. There's this little girl who does the perfect imitation. It's so hilarious.
I can't make my eyes bug out of my head enough. Oh my gosh, I love it. It's great.
Okay. So one thing that I wanted to talk about.
Did you know that buffaloes could fly, but we keep stealing their wings? Anyway, sorry, going on.
Do they fart though?
No.
Okay. All right. So one of the reasons that I'm doing this podcast, and I have some others scheduled over the next couple of months, is I want to highlight conservative businesses and make sure that we are letting the audience know that you are out there. So one that we've learned about that's very interesting is Patriot Mobile. Have you heard of Patriot Mobile?
I have not.
Okay, so I just found out about them, so I don't know all the information. We will post a link and some information to them. But there was a cellular company that started up several years ago, and I wish I could remember the name, but it was their sole purpose was to fund the socialist, communist, far left-wing democratic sort of ideals and campaigns and all that, right? And they raised millions and millions and millions of dollars over, this time frame. So Patriot Mobile was an answer to that. So they are I don't know how long they've been in business. This is new. I mean, I literally just heard about this on the radio today, and I got all excited, and I'm sharing it everywhere. But their purpose is to fund conservative ideals and fund conservative candidates. This is awesome. So I'm personally going to be looking at them to see if, we spend a ton of money on cellular service. I'm going to be looking at them and see what they can do for me as far as, my plan. But Patriot Mobile, I want you guys to look at that. And over the next few weeks, like I said, I'm going to have some other business owners, business managers that have conservative companies that we can get behind as conservatives. So there's another bit of news. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Did you hear about the bill that Greg Abbott signed? The lemonade stand bill?
Down in Texas?
Yes. Okay. So I want to show this video.
Yeah, let's put it. He had a heck of a week.
Yeah.
Greg
I
Abbott.
like Greg Abbott.
He had a heck of a week.
But so the lemonade, it's silly that we even have to sign a bill. But okay, let's take a second and show the lemonade stand video.
Have you ever ordered food or groceries from a retailer to be delivered to your home, and also wish that you could order beer or wine to be delivered to your home? Well, I'm about to sign a law that allows you to do just that. Enjoy responsibly.
Us little kids. Okay, we good? All right. So basically, Texas is not going to be arresting kids who are having lemonade stands. That's a good thing. That is a common sense bill. It's funny because years ago, I actually lived in Texas, and I have a video. We're not going to show it because I didn't bring it. But I actually have a video of my oldest two. They're 26 and almost 24 now, having their lemonade stand. So, and they were not arrested or harassed in any way. Okay. So support pro-American businesses, and I think we showed your Lord Tyler of Wilshire video.
I really wish you would.
Okay.
Nice.
So
that's what happens when your employees come to you with a hey boss, you're going to do this. You don't have a choice, or we're all going to walk out.
Oh, you had fun with it. Yes. It's
anyway,
hilarious. Okay. So
we'll go with that.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so something else, another big announcement I'm super excited about. One of my show's contributors, Jeff Gerwich, who is he writes for DefenseReview.com and SWAT magazine. He's a three-gun competitive shooter. He is retired Special Forces, very well known in the whole shooting world. Anyway, he's going to be in town in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to have him live on the show. Isn't that exciting? And probably get to come here and do some shooting. Yeah. So we do have a video. Did we already show our Jeff Gerwich video? If not, we can do that now.
Said that he was in the army.
So we're going to keep it on semi for the firing, but it's a positive, way more accurate gun.
No, the H car.
Bullet is the balloon beyond my reach with this.
All right, welcome back. Hopefully you have shared this with everybody that you know. So yes, Jeff Gerwich is going to be here. Exciting news. All right, so something that you can do for us is go to patreon.com/OTUmedia. This is a way that you can support us. This podcast, all of our podcasts, if you go to the Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite page, you can see all of our awesome podcasts where we talk about all this conservative information. It is raw, people. We don't do fake news. It's real stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit, people get offended, get their feelings hurt because people tell the truth on here, but that's just too bad. But we need your support. So you can help us by going to patreon.com/OTUmedia. I will be happy to take your money to support my podcast. So anything coming up with you, Wilshire Gunn? I know ladies' night was last night. I was like, hey, it's Wednesday, it's ladies' night. He's like, no, Tuesday was ladies' night.
Every night's ladies' night. Come on in. Seriously. Hey, every night's fun. There's always something going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. Come on in. I mean, we are obviously different than a lot of other places. When you come in, you expect like a normal gun store. It's not a normal gun store. You come in and it's you smell the wood fire grill. You know, you got burgers and steaks and chicken and pot roast going on in there, and then you go out and shoot real quick in a nice air conditioned range, and then you come out and have dinner and stuff when you're done, and lock the guns away, and then come upstairs and have a drink and watch a sports game. It's not your normal place, but it's a lot of fun. And so come on out and enjoy yourself. It's really cool.
Yes, and you can host events here.
Yeah,
I had
awesome.
I had a competition here.
Yeah, the Caliber Club up here is open to the public and stuff. So like we have people like you just come on in here, bring 10, 12 of your friends. You want to get a meeting and get together, just come on in and order some food. You don't even need to shoot. Just come on in
and buy guns. Sorry, I have to say it. I just want to help our economy selfishly. Okay. Well, I appreciate you all being with us today. Please share, and I will be posting some of the guests that we're going to have coming up in the future. We have some very exciting ones, so be sure to tune in and join us. Share our podcast. Go to patreon.com and support us, and I will see you next week.